Alright guys, welcome back to Formula 1 news and another Grand Prix, another shed load of talking points with regard to Ferrari. Their strategy once again questionable from start to finish at the Belgian Grand Prix, but could Max Verstappen's visor tear-off strip that he pulled off on the opening lap of the race actually have sabotaged Leclerc's race unintentionally? Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy, subscribe if you are new as always. Ferrari though, they're not looking in a good way. We'll talk about the speeding incident here in a second. These are the numbers in the championship. Verstappen leads the championship now from Sergio Perez, 93 points ahead of Perez, 98 points ahead of Leclerc. I believe that Verstappen can now just finish third every race from now to the end of the season, and even if Leclerc wins every race with the fastest lap, which obviously isn't going to happen, then Verstappen will still win it with just getting on the podium every single weekend. So yes, not a good sign, and in the constructors it's even worse, 118 points behind Ferrari. Maybe that's more achievable, but realistically they've got to watch out for Mercedes behind rather than Red Bull in front. And also I did want to talk about here from the strategic perspective, because it just seems so easy for Red Bull and Verstappen. They do intelligent strategies, they go along where they can, they bring their drivers into the pits, they do great pit stop scores. Like Verstappen had nothing to think about really, it felt like today. They tell him what he's doing, he comes into the pits when they tell him to, and it's easy enough for him. The issue is for Ferrari is that I don't really know why they're so undecisive nowadays, it seems. Like it felt like they were really resistant to go onto the hards, even though they eventually did decide to do that. But like every lap they're asking Charles Leclerc, what does he want to do? How is the pace feeling? Should we go onto the hards? Do you want another set of mediums? And he's just sitting around there with 8 seconds gap in front of him, 8 seconds gap behind him, losing time to George Russell, but doesn't maybe really realize that because maybe his guys aren't telling him. And he's like, well, I don't really know. I don't see the data. I don't see what the other drivers on track behind me with the hard tires are doing. Are they putting in good laps? Are they getting a good warm up? Like, why am I the man who has to decide this stuff? So I just don't really get Ferrari sometimes why, like, I mean, yeah, we can't blame the strategist. If we ask Charles to be the strategist, right, and of course Leclerc's going to give his thoughts on whether it's a good or bad idea what they're doing, but I mean, yeah, surely you employ the strategist for some reason. You want to get the driver's input, but in terms of pit options and tyre options and stuff, they have way more info than the driver does. So I really just don't understand it sometimes, and it's happened again. Now, in fairness, his, of course, opening few laps during the safety car period was not ideal at all for Leclerc, because he had, well, seemingly some piece of plastic stuck in his brake duct, and, well, we'll see what this actually might have been here in a second. Kind of incredible this happened, actually. But what it meant was that Leclerc had to pit on lap 4, went all the way to the back of the grid on his first set of mediums, so he better got any time at the start of the race, and then eventually had to go onto the hard tyres, of course, towards the ends, and then, of course, went on to pit a couple of more times, especially for the one right at the end of the race that we shall see here in a second. But, I mean, yeah, far from optimal for Ferrari, of course, that they had to pit this early. If they hadn't have done, then maybe they make more progress, but the Ferrari just had no pace today at all, especially compared to the Red Bulls, so I really doubt that Leclerc would have done much better here. But it's possible if this didn't happen at the very least, then the penalty at the end of the race that restricted him to P6 probably wouldn't have done. Now, apparently this was a piece of Max Verstappen's visor tear-off, so the drivers have these kind of tear-offs on their visor when they get kind of dusted up and stuff and they can't see anymore. They can just rip them off. I'm not sure they're meant to like just throw them onto the track. I'm pretty sure they're not allowed to do that or something like that. Verstappen clearly did this and then was told after the fact that, like, hang on a second, did you realize that you threw a visor duct onto the track? It kind of looks like this, actually. So you guys can see here Max Verstappen, he's got the helmet on. This from a while ago, but you can see this kind of plastic thing over the top. You can just rip it off. Now, maybe they're allowed to throw them on the track now. I'm not really sure what they meant to do with them, to be honest, when they get these things off. But I think he realized after the first lap there was a load of dust getting brought up, and as he says here, like, so much dirt, I pulled off my tear off because I could barely see anything. And then of course he was told that Charles was forced to pit due to a visor tear off getting stuck in his brakes, and he was like, well, Carlos told me it was a tear off, but I didn't know if it was mine. Hopefully it's not mine. And says, well, unfortunately these things do happen. That's the worst nightmare scenario. So that is incredible that of all the people this could happen to this season, it happens to be between the two championship rivals. And I mean, yeah, it's a straight up Mario Kart moment, right? He literally just threw out the banana and spun Leclerc around and made him go into the pits. I mean, it's incredible scenes, really. Like, this, I guess, is under the safety car conditions, right? Where his visor tear strip or whatever is kind of dusted up a bit. He rips it off, as you guys can see here. And then in the next image, you can actually see it glinting in the sun of having bounced off and then flies into Leclerc's brake duct, where it gets lodged and prevents him from delivering the actual brake force that he needs to be able to deliver. So they go into the pits, they take off his front right tyre, they put on the new tyre, and they say, oh, hang hang on a second here. Yeah, there was a visor strip just sitting here, and guess whose car it was from? So, I mean, look, this is just 200 IQ strategy here for Max Verstappen. Not only does he win the race by, 20 seconds from his teammates after starting P14, but he's sabotaging the Ferrari guys as well. So obviously not ideal at all, but it probably wouldn't have changed the race result. As I say though, what it might have done is changed where Leclerc finished, because if he didn't have to pit when he did, and therefore lost time due to a suboptimal strategy, he might have been better placed such that the Alonso incident didn't necessarily have to occur with, obviously it was a bit of a disaster. And I did want to talk about this because again, it was a questionable decision here from Ferrari, and even Fernando Alonso said after that, we'll see Alonso's statement here in a second, was like, I don't really know what Ferrari were thinking. So he was asked to come into the pits, 2 laps to go. Ferrari had the choice, okay, do we try and pit Leclerc, put him on a set of softs? We should have a gap behind to Alonso to make it be okay. As it turned out, it kind of wasn't, but then again, it kind of was, because yes, Alonso got him on the first lap, but then, Leclerc was well positioned to get in a position to get the DRS down the Kemmel straights to potentially even give him an advantage going into, to try and make the fastest lap happen. So if anything, it could work out in their favour. Leclerc said he didn't want to take the risk, lock up the P5, don't try and get the fastest lap, and he was asked on the radio and he said, yeah, I'm not really sure, I don't think we should do it, but and then the driver and then the engineers said right before he was coming down to the final corner to say, yeah, okay, let's come into the pits and try and make this work. Apparently though, coming into the pits, he drove 1 kilometer per hour too fast in the pit lane, which once you get over the line, you're not allowed to go above 80 kph, I believe, at this circuit. I think it's 80 most places, 60 at some others like France and Silverstone, but yeah, he was apparently driving 81. Apparently there was some sort of sensor that wasn't working due to overheating, so obviously that's not ideal either. So another Ferrari disaster class. And that's the thing, yes, the speeding thing is on Leclerc, he should have been going 1 kph slower, but I mean, yeah, still, it was like the whole idea of like the Alonso coming out ahead, requiring the last lap overtake to gain the position back and then lose the position due to the penalty. It just doesn't seem necessary for Ferrari to do this. And even like Alonso, after the fact he was asked about it, I might be able to share the clip for you guys at the end of the video, and he said, well, yeah, when Charles came into box, I was kind of surprised because I'm sure Alonso thought, okay, easy P6, let's just hold up Ocon and pick up these points. Then Leclerc comes into the pits, Alonso takes him and is like, well, Ferrari always does these strange strategies, right? I was kind of laughing about it. And then of course he knew full well that Leclerc was going to get him back with the softer tyres. But I mean, yeah, still a questionable situation where he ends up getting P5 regardless. And at the end of the day though, the result is what it is. It's again another questionable day at the office for Ferrari, but not really due to their strategy, mainly due to the strength of their car. As Leclerc said, their gap between Ferrari today and the Mercedes and the Alpines and all the other cars was about what it has been and where they would expect it to be. Their gap to the Red Bulls though was honestly drastic, right, and ominously so for the rest of the season and even future years. Verstappen at times was lapping well over a second faster than anyone on the entire track. Maybe that's because, okay, Verstappen, new engine, right, they obviously put the new stuff in, but Leclerc had the new stuff as well, and he was slower than Sainz. So that's really what I think they're going to have to raise internally as to why exactly this was the case, because if they have any hope of even winning a race for the end of the season, they're going to have to turn this around quickly, right? Of course, the championship is over. Leclerc's not going to say it, and Binotto himself says one of the issues was tyre degradation, which is kind of a surprise in a way, because the whole idea I thought for Ferrari here was to put some more downforce on, sacrifice some top straight line speeds, but gain the advantage of potentially better tyre deg than the Red Bull so they can have a strategic advantage. Turns out the Red Bull had better tyre deg and better top speed and just better grip and traction and efficiency and power and basically everything in the book. So they've got to figure out why that's the case. And yeah, not a good week for them at all. Obviously disappointed, says Binotto. They just had a faster package from start to finish regardless of these strategic decisions. So that's the thing. The Ferrari question marks with regard to strategy, not just what they did with Charles Leclerc in the race, but also the end of the race incident and the discussions they had with him has been rather overshadowed by the fact that their car was just nowhere near good enough this weekend, and actually those, mistakes maybe didn't cost them at all. Carlos Sainz does believe that Monza heavily favours the Red Bull, as of course it should with the straight lines, but in Zandvoort he does believe they've got a good chance. So they reckon they can be back on form, but I mean, yeah, honestly, it's looking kind of ominous for the rest of the season. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you are new, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.
Were you surprised when Charles pitted to try and get the softs on for a fastest lap?
Second?
When Charles pitted at the end there to try and get some softs on for a fastest lap, were you surprised? Did you think he'd come back at you?
Yeah, I was surprised, but Ferrari always does some strange strategies, so that was one of those.
All right, thanks, Fernando. Well done today. Thank you.